Welcome to another episode of Runners Roundtable. My name is Stephanie Diaz, and this episode is all about how to pick a run coach. It's going to be broken down into 3 parts. First part is questions to ask yourself. So if you are looking for a run coach, I'm going to give you some questions that you should think about before speaking to anybody. The second part of this episode is going to be questions to ask a run coach. So hopefully you set up a consultation call with the prospective coach, or just some information gathering session so that you can get to know the coach better. Third part of this episode is going to be questions that a coach should ask you. And the reason why that's included is because I want you to remember. And if you don't remember, or you haven't heard this before, you've got season 2 of Runners Roundtable, 26 different conversations with different run coaches. And a theme from that was the importance of it being a relationship that fits both the athlete and the run coach. So let's dive in to some of the questions you should think about in this how to pick a run coach. So first of all, questions to ask yourself. I think a good place to start is always, what do I know about run coaching? What do I know about what a run coach does? And what are my expectations for a run coach? Answering those questions will really help you figure out what it is you need from a run coach and how a run coach fits into whatever it is your goals are, either for running in general, running for a specific time, or running for a specific distance. So what do you know about run coaching? Always a really, really great place to start, especially nowadays when we see that the everyday runner has a run coach. I myself have a run coach. She's awesome. Shout out to Jessica from Team Sugar Runs if she hears this. Or, so you all know that even though I talk about this coaching stuff, I myself is coached as well. Question to ask yourself is, why do I want a run coach? This will help you get clear on your goal. Like I said, do you need a run coach to help you be accountable to the training that you want to do? Do you need a run coach because you need structure in your training? So you need someone that's going to plan out when you run, how much you run, and what type of run do you do? Or do you want a coach because you need a hype person? You want someone who's going to be that cheerleader for you, who's going to support you when perhaps no one else in your life is. And I don't mean it that people are not going to support you. I mean it in the sense of maybe you have people who aren't runners in your inner circle, so they don't really get the mentality of a runner or the goals that you are chasing as a runner. Whereas your run coach, that person will get it. They will know, they will hype you up. So those are 3 things that you can kind of consider. And it can be a combination. It can be all of them, right? It's a run coach because you need accountability, a run coach for structure, and a run coach for hype. All of that stuff is going to be really, really important for when we get to the section on questions to ask your coach, because then you're going into it understanding this is the type of coach that I'm looking for, and this is the type of coach that I need for where I'm at right now, or what I want to get out of running right now. What do I hope to get out of having a run coach? Incredibly important question. This is all about giving yourself clarity. Do you want someone who only does run coaching, or do you want someone who is a run coach but then also a physical therapist, or someone who's a run coach and also a strength coach? A run coach can have other certifications or just other things that they do. So there's a lot of run coaches that all they do is run coaching. There are coaches that all they do is train athletes who run on the trails. There are run coaches who do triathlon. So figure out, what kind of coach do you hope to get, and what certifications are you interested in them having? And if they don't have certifications, it's more, what interests do they have, or what are their specialties that you feel would benefit you as an athlete. Again, this all connects back to your goal for running and your goal for getting a run coach. An important question to always consider is, can I afford a run coach? There is a large spectrum of fees for run coaches. Some run coaches do month to month. Some run coaches have chunks of periods of time that they do. So you have to pay for 3 months, pay for 6 months, pay for a year in advance. So that's an important consideration for yourself of, do I have the money to hire a run coach? And if so, how much am I willing to spend? Again, all of this also connects back to, does the run coach have any other specialties that they do? Finally, a question to ask yourself before starting the process of finding a run coach is really, how do I want to be coached? Do I want someone that is virtual? Do I want someone that's in person? Does the sex of the coach matter? Do you want to work with someone who's a woman? Do you want to work with someone who's a man? Any other identities within that? Is that important for you? Those are all considerations to take in figuring out, who do I want to work with? Because again, there are a lot of run coaches out there. You've got just such a rainbow of variety with coaches that this is where you start to filter it out, right? You can go on to, for instance, a site like the RRCA, so Roadrunners Club of America. And through there, one of the things that you can filter out is through state. So maybe you want to be coached by someone that's in your state. Me personally, I wanted to be coached by a woman because I wanted someone who had an understanding of what it was like to be a menstruating athlete. That was something that was really, really important to me. Also, someone who understands what it's like to be a mother and the stressors that come along with that. So those are things that maybe they're important to you, maybe they're not, but it is a good place to start when you're thinking about, how do I filter out all of the options? Moving on, y'all. Questions to ask a coach. So you've done some of your research. You've gotten a little bit clear as to what you want out of a coach. You've gotten a little bit clear as to whether it's in person or virtual, the pricing. You found people who fit whatever your budget is, and perhaps you've set up a few consultations. So a lot of run coaches will do the consultations for free. You'll set up maybe a meeting over Zoom or a phone call conversation, or maybe you're going back and forth through email, through text messaging, getting a feel for them through those communications, and then you set up a meeting with them. There are 3 really, really important questions to ask a run coach. And those 3 questions are, what is your coaching philosophy? What is your coaching style? And what is your approach to training? Let's break that down a little bit more. What is your coaching philosophy? Behind this question is an answer that will reveal their values to you. What is it that's important to them as a coach? What is it that they hope to instill in their athletes through the coaching relationship and through the training process? Asking them what their coaching style is going to be really helpful because, again, it's a relationship. There is an interaction happening between the athlete and the coach. So maybe the coach has a tough love approach. Awesome if that's how you like to receive information and feedback, but maybe you're someone who doesn't like tough love. It's really important to know that. Perhaps the coach's style includes lots of communication, and maybe you're someone who doesn't want a lot of communication. All of that stuff is really great because then when you understand their coaching style, you're also understanding what their expectations are of the relationship. What are their expectations for you as the athlete around communication and around feedback, right? Coach will communicate with you and then you give feedback as to how training is going, how the workouts are feeling. It's a cycle. There's communication, feedback, communication, feedback. And you need to know, does the communication, do you respond well if it's tough love? Do you respond well if it's questioning, right? Your coach may ask you, well, why did you do this? Or what happened on this day? Again, all of that stuff is really, really important because yes, you get a training plan. And in some cases, you just buy a training plan and you're done. But if you're investing the time and the money and the effort into a relationship, you have to be able to communicate with each other. And sometimes those communications can be a little bit challenging in terms of when you're not seeing eye to eye, or when the coach notices certain patterns in training, such as, oh, every time there's a speed workout, you miss it or you don't complete it. And that can be a challenging conversation between coach and athlete. So communication styles have to fit with one another so that you can get as much as possible out of the relationship. When it comes to approach to training, this one for me is a more pragmatic question or a more practical question to ask. It's things like, all right, so where am I getting my workouts? Are we using a platform like Final Surge? Are you sending me my training plans through email? Am I getting it through text message? Is it through Garmin? Like, where is it that I'm actually getting the information as to the workouts that I am doing? When do those training plans come out? Am I expecting them on a Saturday, a Sunday, 24 hours before? Are you sending me the plans in a 1 week chunk, 2 week chunk, a month chunk? Those are really important questions. What communication access do I have? Are you available via text message? Are you available via phone? How can I set up meetings with you? Are meetings even part of the process? I've seen some coaches where they have monthly check-in calls, or some coaches that like to just do voice notes. So understanding what does communication look like, and if we need to veer off of this path of communication, say it's one phone call a month, what does that look like? What is the access that I have to you for any running related questions I may have, or for any questions that involve my life, because sometimes life comes into play and you can't do your runs, or something needs to shift, or something needs to be adjusted. It's also important to ask, what are the type of workouts that they like to give? So can you expect speed workouts? Can you expect, long runs? What kind of long runs are we looking at? Understanding also their approach. Are we doing a periodized training, right? So are we like building a foundation and then implementing items until you reach your peak and it's race? Or is there something else that goes into training? How many weeks of work versus weeks of recovery? Or are we doing, I feel like the typical training program is 3 weeks of hard work and then 1 week down, where you pull back on training, pull back on mileage to give yourself the opportunity to recover. So questions as to, in general, what does training look like, so that you know what to expect and you know what the expectations are of you. So again, questions to ask your coach include, what is your coaching philosophy? What is your coaching style? And what is your approach to training? Third part of this episode, we're diving into the questions a coach should ask you. So you've done the reflection for yourself of, why do I want to run coach? What is this coach going to do for me? What are my preferences when it comes to a run coach? You've done the work of asking your run coach about their philosophy, their style, and their approach to training. Now the tables kind of get flipped, and the coach should be asking you 3 really, really important questions. They are, what's your lifestyle? What is your running history? And how much are you currently running? Now, coaches, I know y'all can ask a lot more questions. I ask a lot more questions than that, but those are the 3 big umbrella questions within this topic of questions a coach should ask you. So if you're listening to this and you're like, all right, what can I expect from this conversation with the coach? It's usually going to be around those. When it comes to what's your lifestyle, the questioning should be around, what are the stressors in your life? What's happening in your life that's going to impact running? Now, obviously, you don't have to go into details, but it's helpful to know, oh, I work 5 days a week, and those 5 days a week are Tuesday through Saturday. So running long on Saturday isn't going to work. Perhaps a Sunday or Monday long run make more sense for you. So understanding your work situation, childcare situation, home situation. Maybe you work a job where it's 3 days a week, but they're, 12-hour shifts. Whatever the case is, all of that stuff is really valuable for the coach to know, because that's the information that the coach is going to take to then create whatever your training plan. So as much as you feel comfortable sharing about your lifestyle, it's going to benefit you. Part of this questioning is also understanding, and I've kind of spoken to that already, of where does running fit into your lifestyle? I want you to remember running is something you are adding to your life. Even for myself, who has been running for over a decade consistently, running is still something that I add to my life. And at times it's been something I have to subtract because mom duties come into play, or because I get sick or something, like where that's just the thing that it has to go, because either it requires too much effort or it's requiring too much time for me. So your coach should be asking you these questions as to how does running fit into your lifestyle right now? And in particular, if you have a specific distance-based goal, understanding and asking you as to where that training fits in. So if you're incredibly busy and you're working really long hours, and I like to give the example of like an accountant, right? Like if you're an accountant and it's the beginning of the year, an April marathon is not a great idea. You might just, I'm sure people do it. I'm not going to say people don't do it, but it might not be the best fit for you at the moment because you are so busy and so worked out and over with that. So important reminder, even just beyond this, for anyone that's listening, that stress is stress. Your body is not registering what it is. Your body is simply registering that you are stressed out. So keep that in mind. You have to be realistic, and your coach should be asking you questions that will highlight what is realistic for you. Coach shouldn't limit you, but definitely present you with what the limitations may be when it comes to the goals that you are choosing to go after. When it comes to the topic of your running history, or the question of your running history, some of the things that a coach should ask you about is, how long have you been running? What distances have you ran before? What are your PR times and your recent times? And I think this is really, really important because they can be different, right? So your PR time can be, we'll give myself as an example. My PR for the marathon was from 2016, but my recent times, I have, a marathon from this past April. That's going to give you two very, very different bits of information, and also highlight just the growth that I've had as an athlete, and even just highlight the fact that I've gotten older as an athlete. So it's really important to kind of have those two things, not necessarily to establish a baseline, but just to color the picture of who you are as an athlete. PR times are something that you accomplished. That's the potential. And then your current times are your foundation. I guess we can kind of see it that way. Also, part of your running history that your coach should ask about, or the coach should ask about, or you should hopefully share and volunteer, are any of your injuries that you've had before. It's really, really important to understand your injury history. When you had that injury, is this something that's a recurrent injury? Has the injury been resolved? How did you resolve it? Really getting to know who you are as a runner. To build upon that, understanding your running history is also understanding how much you are currently running. Run coaching, we build from your current state, not a past state. In order for you to train effectively and healthily, we have to start where you are. Again, there's that having to be realistic about where you are. and realistic about where you can go, right? So if right now you're running 4 days a week and it's 20 miles within those 4 days, to give an example, you're not going to say, hey, I want to run 6 days a week and get up to 40 miles, right? Like, we've got to build from where you are, introduce something new each time, and then that's where the number of days, if it fits within your lifestyle, the number of days and the number of miles, that is where it grows. But having an understanding of where you are right now, if you're running 4 days a week, if you're running 20 miles a week, how does that fit in? How does that work with your lifestyle? That's really, really important to know. I want to highlight that the biggest point from all of this is that run coaching is a relationship. It really has to be a good fit in order for it to work. Not every run coach is for you, just like not every athlete is for every run coach. That's the beauty of us just living on a planet with 8 billion people, is that there is someone for everyone. So don't be discouraged if you have a number of phone calls or consultations and it just doesn't feel right. Keep looking. And if you're talking to a coach and you're like, yeah, this may not be it, but hey, do you have any recommendations? Hopefully the person is open to receiving that question. But that can be somewhere where the conversations grow as to, okay, now I understand you and you understand me. Let's actually talk about whether this would be a good fit. Run coaching, coach, athlete, it is a relationship. If it doesn't work for the athlete, you're not going to be motivated. You're not going to feel accountable to anyone. If you don't feel supported, it's not going to work. It just isn't. It may work for a while, but if you're looking to build a long-term relationship with someone, it's got to fit. And you have to give yourself time to figure each other out and to get to know each other. But you'll know that. You'll know that. And if you don't know that, just come back to a lot of the questions that I presented in this episode so that you can get to know yourself better. You can get to know a coach better, and a coach can get to know you better. So again, 3 main areas of questions are the questions to ask yourself before you have a consultation with a coach, questions to ask a coach during your consultation, and then questions that you can expect a coach would ask you. I hope this episode was helpful. If you have any questions about anything I presented, reach out to me on Instagram at The Cookie Runner or send me an email. Let me know if you can think of any other questions that would be really good to ask, or if you're a run coach yourself, if there is something that maybe I missed in this episode that people should know about when they are searching for a run coach. In either case, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And again, my hope is always, I may not answer a lot of questions, but hopefully I leave you with some good questions you can ask yourself so that you can continue to grow as an athlete and get curious as to your own potential as a runner. See you next time.